one, so that means I'll intro.
Yeah.
The other thing we need to think about too is one thing we're not doing is we're not an authentic podcast because we really don't put. We're not consistently putting our podcast actually on podcast platforms.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, that was another thing I was looking into.
I think once we get it all figured out, it's going to be super streamed, and I mean it will be easy. But yeah, I think we got to get it everywhere to really make an impact. So
yeah, I think for the podcast thing, I think it's beneficial because I looked at kind of all the other things where you can stream it on, in terms of like quote unquote podcast. I think Spotify and Apple is probably just where we should stay for now.
Yeah, I mean that's I use Apple for everything. I mean Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
But having them on those two platforms at least.
The audios. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, hold on. I need to look up before we start. I need to look up the name of Chad's book. I forgot.
Help I Work with People.
All right, cool.
All right, you ready? Let's do a countdown. Hey, what's up, everybody? Back with the Leadership Download. My name's Travis Van Dusen, back here with my friend Cameron Singh, and today we're jumping into some new content on We is Greater Than Me. Cameron, you want to take us into this content?
Yeah, for sure. I know we kind of talked about this, some content related to this previously regarding Chad Veach's book called Help I Work with People. We talked about leading yourself, developing people skills, and now we're going to focus on how do we put that together, talking about teamwork. So we is greater than me. In previous podcasts, we look at the importance of leading yourself and developing people skills. And both of these are essential for leadership. You don't want to do everything yourself. You empower people to do more than you ever could, which really increases your effectiveness. And your effectiveness is really not what you do, but it's truly in the people that you lead, and that is your team. When you lead a team, you are the catalyst that mobilizes your people. You are the ones that drive kind of what they do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, I think this is a major transition we make in leadership is when we go from being that kind of solo contributor to being that team leader. Is understanding that it's no longer about how hard I can work or how much value I can add. It's now about how can I best challenge my team? How can I best foster a community with my team to get the best production, to do the best work? It's a complete shift in thinking when we go from that that seat where it's all about us and how hard we can work to now we're responsible for a team of contributors that get us across the finish line. It's definitely a different dynamic to what we have to do.
Yeah, that's so true. And people need leaders, and leaders need teams. The basic principle of leadership is really leading multiple people who work together for the common good. So now moving on to how do we create this successful teamwork that we're talking about? So there are various components to it. There's direction, people, and then there's systems. So we're going to dive into a little bit about what this means. When we talk about direction, know where you are going. Or talking about people, know whom you need and making sure you have them in the right place. Because oftentimes, I know I've experienced this, is sometimes you have your people in the wrong positions. You have them doing what they're not good at. They're not thriving in what they truly want to do. And then lastly, talking about systems and structure. And what this entails is know how to get to where you're going. And yeah, go ahead, Travis.
No, so I was just going to say, these three things, it reminds me of, Jim Collins' work with Good to Great, where he talks about, the need to have people in the right seats and to know where people best fit into the organization and understand that structure and where people fit in. But I was also going to say, when you talk about direction, is nobody really likes following a leader that doesn't have a clear picture of where they're going. It's really hard for me to encourage you, Cameron, to follow me and to trust me and to kind of charge forward in whatever we're doing. If at the end of the day, I don't even have a clear picture of where we're going. And unfortunately for a lot of leaders, especially, times we face now, there's not a lot of clarity of where we're going, but having a basic understanding of the direction we're moving in, if we don't have that, I would actually say we're probably not the leader in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like mentioned before, leaders need teams and teams need leaders. And so you want to lead your team in a way that truly accomplishes the goals and advances the team vision together. So how do you define success? Oftentimes, we're like, where are we going as an organization? And defining success, to define it, first, you need to be clear on vision and your definition of success. Defining what you want as an organization will help you avoid the traps of complacency and unfocused busyness. I know Travis, you've experienced this, is we all say, oh, we're busy, but are we working towards what actually matters? Are we just busy just because, working on things that don't really matter within our organization, or are we working towards what actually matters? Are we actually going towards what matters? And where this starts is laying out a vision with long-term objectives. Where are we going? Where are we going as an organization? And then celebrating the wins as you go along. And that's what we call as short-term accomplishments. It's so important. We have this long-term vision of where we're going, but celebrating those wins.
Yeah, I think it's important that we know the general direction we're going in. It's like, be married to the goal, right? The ultimate goal, but don't be married to the plans. So we have to have that true north of, this is where we're going. This is where our energy is moving towards, and understanding that everything else is up for adjusting along the way. And that's something I think we see a lot with leaders, is they don't necessarily, maybe they don't know where that true north is, or they know where that true north is, but they expect that long-term trajectory is just going to, they're just going to keep being able to do the same things over and over and over without making any changes. But when you look at things from a short-term perspective, right, and you start thinking about, like, okay, let's get through the next 3 months and reach this benchmark, and let's celebrate it, right? When things go well, let's celebrate it. Let's point it out to our people. Let's let them know we just had a big win. And so that people know what it looks like to win. And then people have more clarity on what winning looks like and what we're expecting. Oftentimes, we may have a good win and we're just like, oh yeah, good job, and we move on. Well, no, we need to emphasize, hey, we just did a really good job. You just did a really good job. We got this across the finish line. Let's celebrate this. Let's point this out, so that the team, they can feel that appreciation, but they also know, okay, now you're beginning to paint that picture of what does success look like? Because the picture you have in your mind of success, I guarantee you, is not the picture of what your team members' picture of success looks like. It's a lot different. So we have a job of getting what's in our mind into theirs.
Mm-hmm. And now we're talking about chemistry and culture. Being aware of the chemistry among your team members and the culture that it creates within your organization, and being proactive about being the healthiest and most unified team possible. With every team, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be personality issues. There's no way you can avoid it. But I think it's so important to be proactive. It's holding people accountable, having that fairness amongst your team, so that you can build a strong team and have that great chemistry. And one way you can do this is influence the influencers amongst your team. In each and every one of the teams that you lead and we lead, you have influencers that are able to influence your team. And once you identify those within your organization, what you want to do is enlist your support to serve and lead people together. I know in my experience, when I strove towards influencing those influencers amongst your team, it makes your day-to-day job really easy. Um, and then what you say matters, and you should be clear and concise and effective as possible. I know in a previous podcast, we talked about concrete versus abstract communication. That really makes a difference amongst your team and can really make an impact on both your chemistry and culture amongst your team.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time in my life. I was moving into a new location, and the location had a lot of challenges going on. I mean, it was just a lot of moving pieces, a lot of failures, a lot of frustration. And I knew day one that it was going to be a challenge. The location was challenging because of where it was. The demographic was a bit challenging. And I knew that I had my work cut out for me. And one of the biggest concerns was, the people, the team that was already there were concerned I was going to come in and clean house and change everything and just kind of up in their worlds. And one of the things I did that paid off for me greatly in the long run is very early on in literally the first week or two of me being on the job, I really was able to, talk to the other managers and say, who are the influencers on the front line? Who are the guys who really sway people, good or bad? And I was able to get a group of those men and women in a room and ask them some very pertinent questions, some very important questions on what's going on in the company, what their disappointments were, what their expectations were. And I was able to start, reassure them that, number one, I wasn't going to throw everything out, but number two, that I was very much about trying to help them have a better life. And that began that process of influencing the influencers. And so it got to a point where, when we needed to roll out a new policy or we needed to do something different, or we had some tough news to break or some system changes, I would bring these people in first and have a conversation with them, win them over, bring them over to my side of the way of seeing things if I could. And that almost always got me 80% of the team immediately to buy into it because they would give the nod to it. As a leader, that's a bit humbling because you as a leader, you kind of want to just think about, you think you just want to be able to give directives and it's there. But understanding that, you're going to have to influence the influencers first, can either help you or it can really hurt you if you don't, if you're not willing to work through that.
Yeah, that's so true, Travis. And so our last area that we want to touch on is working your systems. And how this is good results start with good systems, and people problems are usually problems within your system. So what are some benefits of systems? Just going to list a few that I have down here. Is systems promote efficiency. They assign clear roles and responsibilities. They provide protection. They help onboard new team members, and systems help build success. By providing the proper structure and sustainability, healthy systems will build your organization. They'll help serve your team and help you achieve your vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best benefit of systems is it can take a lot of things off your plate as a leader that do not need to be on your plate. Some of the systems that I've developed in the organization that I lead in have allowed me to be able to teach others on my team how I think, how things need to be done. Systems allow us to have a very clear, I don't want to say cookie cutter, but a very clear cookie cutter way of doing things, so that there's no mistakes on what the expectations are. So if you can develop good systems, you can save yourself a lot of heartache, because a lot of questions can be answered without having to come across your desk, or where you have to take time out of your schedule to answer them. So I 100% agree. These systems are very key.
Yeah, and I think another thing is to be fluid with systems, is especially in today's time. There's a lot of rapid change going on within our organizations and affecting various industries, the church, and different organizations. So it's important also to be fluid with your systems. Anything else to add, Travis?
No, I mean, I think the most important thing to understand is that, as you shift into a leadership position, is understanding the value of the team. I think overall, we're speaking to overall younger leaders who are making those transitions into that. I think that a lot of people have built their credibility on themselves, but ultimately your credibility will stand or fall based off on how you can lead a team. You could either be very successful, or you're not going to be able to go but so far on your own hustle. So it takes being able to implement some of these principles into your own life, into your own team, to be able to be successful. So yeah, that's that.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in on this latest Leadership Download podcast. Hope this is helping you and all the young professionals out there, and catch us on the next one.